model observations on boreholes. Since we had, let's say, two different concepts to model this, where one is, of course, the borehole, the physical drilling, and then based on the drill, we can have one or many observations on that. So that's something that, of course, IFC can model quite well with existing concepts, where we use assignment relationships to assign observations to the borehole. But then we also encountered another requirement from Kazunori, who explained to us that it's not only one observation that we're looking at, and even if there's two, or let's say there's not only one test that we're looking at on one borehole every time, but also that each and every test can also be decomposed into segments on boreholes. So
Exactly.
that actually meant quite a complex structure of these tests, and we had a couple of proposals flying back and forth where we agreed on one that. Just a
share
second. Do you have the updated PowerPoint maybe, Kazunori? Because
Yeah.
in the end we said you're gonna update it, but I don't think I got it yet. Probably makes sense to show that. That would be the easiest. But the general idea is that on a borehole we assign tests as geo-observations, and that would be the rel assigns to product. Exactly at this. We have the rel assigns to product on borehole where we assign geoscience observation tests to it. But then these geoscience observation tests can be decomposed into smaller tests based on the segments on the borehole. We also then talked about how to convey this information of how of what the segment is, and we in the end agreed that it would probably make most sense to have both a polyline representing this part where the test is relevant for, and have a depth range property that's filled in manually. Of course, then the creator of data has to be consistent in updating these two values so that they don't diverge. But in the end, this is sort of the concept that or let's say many concepts that would make up a geoscience observation on a borehole. We also, by the way, we also already tried a couple of tests with this, but we're on the technical level yet. We're working out the schema problems. I don't think actually we can go through all of the stuff today on the file. I would actually propose a separate meeting, Kazunori, tomorrow, where we can go into detail. One of them was, the serialization of 3 attributes instead of 4. But I have a long list here of. I have a number. I don't have them numbered, but it seems like something in the range of 20 issues that we have to address that are repeating themselves.
I updated my IFC file so that I can just show it to you on BIM Vision. I followed that structure that you recommended. And now the structure looks like this.
Mm-hmm.
So each test is aggregated into digital science observation. And under that, these are the values or properties for every segment, each segment. So that's what you suggested, I think.
Can you clap open the last two?
Oh yeah.
These two.
Um,
Yeah. Oh, this is
this
very
this is
steep.
about the sample, and I didn't find property set for sample on the 4.4 document.
I think that's
yes.
still in the pipeline. We
Right,
are
so
working on all those. Yeah.
yeah, I thought we proposed that from domain team, but it wasn't there, so I didn't use it. But I realized it's still on the way.
Yeah.
So I have to update that part using the proposed property set, I think.
I mean, you could. I think it's not far away now. So I mean, if you like, you could just go in and look at the pull requests.
Which one is it?
There is one. Yeah.
GeoOps sample.
Yeah.
Okay, let me check this one. What we still have open here.
I mean, I don't remember now. I mean, we have still some issues open that we will discuss with Geo team. I think tomorrow or Monday.
But I think, yeah, we will discuss this and merge. But mostly, let's say, if you just use the ones that are agreed on, should be fine. In the meantime, let me just quickly give you an overview, maybe taking the screen over. So this is why I don't want to go into, tell me when you see my screen.
We do.
Yep.
So these are the technical problems listed with the file. This is why I don't want to go through each and every one of them in this meeting, but it's mainly, serialization issues. You have the stuff that's not serialized as a collection. You have stuff that where you would need a reel, so you don't have a dot in the mantissa. You have stuff like apparently could not parse. This one looks off. So invalid data, for example, for nominal value. Okay, this you said you already corrected, and so on. So it's mainly technical serialization issues. So I would just like to go through those very specifically. Required proper attributes not filled in, and so on.
But the structure of the file, like Kanuzari has presented us like a minute ago, is fine, right? This is the way we
structure should be fine. Yeah.
Yeah, good.
Exactly. Okay. So it's not that part. It's mainly serialization stuff that I would like to discuss, so that the file is okay before we actually share it. But the structure is fine. I think it looks fine. We can also talk about that, but
Good.
That's the second step then.
Yeah, well, I will send you the updated IFC file as well as PowerPoint diagram. after the meeting.
Great.
Thank
then
you.
let's actually address these things tomorrow, one by one. And regarding the encoding, we can.
I found out
sure.
how to do it. So
are you going to do it manually? Because otherwise we can, automate the reserialization and just encode.
I manually mended all these Japanese stupid text, so that's fine.
All right, there was this other subject, but that maybe specific, yes. And sorry, but with regard to the last question that Kazunori had in terms of this, the need for this depth range property, have we answered that?
Yeah, I mean, I sent a response to Kazunori where I looked in the Excel and also in our pull requests, and I think at least the Excel and the pull request agree. So where there is a depth range in the specification, we have a depth range also in our pull requests. So,
okay,
but Kazunori will have to sort of then perhaps make sure that it's not missing on where it should be actually in. So, but
right.
yeah.
But conceptually, we've agreed to it. Okay.
Yes.
Good. Okay. Excellent. Good. Then let's move like you said. You send us a file and the PowerPoint, and that will sort of become the reference for any implementations. And so again, you can take this directly with Kazunori as when it comes to serialization, as you said.
Yep.
Good. Excellent. Thanks, Kazunori, for the investigation and the implementation. Yeah, good. No, that's great. Great stuff. Good. Shall we then maybe leave the floor to Adam and Lee for any questions or comments they might have? Adam?
Not really, other than do we have access to this PowerPoint so we can see what we would need to do to follow the same structure, or are we just going to wait till that's all finalized and then?
No, I think we can circulate it. I mean, yeah, sure. This is something to be shared. Indeed, yes.
Yep. Oh, awesome.
We actually have to put the concept templates and usages into the documentation anyway in the end, because that's our deliverable. So we're going to regenerate the documentation eventually when we have that settled.
I think the concept templates we have, I don't remember. I think the product assignment is there, but the usage is not there.
Indeed, and there's also the question if we would like to put this usage in its fullest on borehole already, that we have to discuss in the technical team to be sure how it's supposed to be documented.
Yeah, and we have sort of a similar case to deal with at the same time, because we also had this case from Artemis as well, which is kind of similar but not the same. This thing where they had this sort of interpreted data also connected to the boreholes.
Yes.
So
prior the interpretation. There's interpretation.
Yeah. So Adam, why I brought this up? Don't start implementing on the basis of the PowerPoint yet. That's sort of a draft, and once it's agreed, we're going to regenerate the documentation anyway. It's just a guideline for now.
But I think having I mean, you also had some sketches in the PowerPoint Kazunori. I think I mean having sort of images connected to the sort of in the documentation, I think would be quite nice. If even though I can't I mean maybe a little bit I think maybe a little bit more connected to, I mean the actual structure is sort of obvious from the usages and templates, but having more like a sketch of the actual case, like with the borehole and
like the 3 slides before.
Yes, something like that. I at least I think would be nice to have.
Yep, agreed.
Should we? I mean, like I proposed, I would actually redo this sketch in Enterprise Architect and then add it to the documentation eventually. Wouldn't that be desired outcome?
Something like that, I think, to explain.
Can't we just upload an image? Do we need to redraw things?
Well, we can upload an image, but to have a proper model of it, I mean, doesn't it look better if it's in Enterprise Architect than PowerPoint?
You tell us. You tell us. That was just an open question.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's figure out something.
Yeah. I mean, in the end, we are sort of arguing with Building Smart also on the same issue, whether or not it's PowerPoints or whatever. So
yeah, no, but
let's
I
do
mean,
our
that was
job
just
properly.
an illustration. But anyway, okay, yeah, no, we can go your way. No worries. Good. Anything else, maybe, Lee, you would like to bring up?
I think you're muted, Lee.
I think you are indeed.
Yep. Nothing to
Better
say.
now.
And I hear what IFC 4x3 has finally been released, has it, or just approved by
Published by
ISO?
ISO, yes.
Does that mean Building Smart's published it, or is that still happening?
I think Building Smart's actually published it.
Yeah.
Already before they sent to ISO.
Yes,
ISO.
The final one. Yep.
Yeah, because Building Smart actually updated on their technical website the package that they sent to ISO already, but I'm not really sure which version is which. I think the one on standards.buildingsmart.org is the ISO version and doesn't change. But I also have one on ifc43.buildingsmart.org, which I think changes with.
Or which are made of some proposals for changes for it. Yeah, so sort of a little fixes.
Like, exactly, like the one that we proposed for IFC value and simple value with URI reference. Those changes I think are actually published on the IFC 4.3 website, and how you can identify which site you're on. The 4.3 IFC 4.3 site has a search box, and the other one, so standards.buildingsmart, doesn't.
Okay.
Right now, at least, I don't know about you, but I can't actually access the Building Smart technical site. When I try to go to IFC specifications database, I get there has been a critical error on this website, which feels a little bit weird. I don't know. Have you tried? Or is it just me?
No, I get the same error here.
I have I'm currently directly on the main links, so let me share the links. I'm not going through that
the
technical site at the moment. So
the technical site is down currently, but the one that Sergey is talking, that's the development version, yes.
So this one that you are sending a link of, that one is the development version?
I sent both links.
Both, right, okay. So the one that is done is the standard?
The standards is the standard site.
It is up, or is it down?
No, these are both up. These are
okay.
both up. And the standard one, so the one that's published to ISO, doesn't have the search bar, and the development one has the search bar.
Okay.
And let me actually check whether our proposed change is already in the development site, which was simple value, I think. Simple value. Yep, that one is already changed, but the standard one probably isn't.
Shouldn't be, right? I mean, if they call it, well, they still can, of course, but.
Yeah, exactly. So the standard site, the addendum 2 site, standards.building smart doesn't have that change, but the development site has that change. That's how it works. I think I figured it out. I wasn't sure myself why they have 2 sites before, but I think I know now.
Yeah, the one that states IC 4.3.2.0 official in the top left. The static page is basically, I believe, just a freeze in time as it was submitted to ISO.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I don't know why they don't use the official namings like draft, draft, candidate standard, proposal, and so on. Why they use official and under development? That doesn't say much in terms of the BSI process, but that's the responsibility of their technical director.
Okay. That's of course a important step that is now behind us. Good. Okay. Anything else? Anyone? Up. Now, Sergey, Stefan.
Nope.
Good.
Maybe. Yeah. I mean, there is. I guess we'll have to settle that today. There is to be a meeting with. I think Jonas asked his team to go through the remaining comments, and we will go through that either tomorrow or on Monday. I think it hasn't been settled yet, but
yes, correct. And maybe just to Lise and Adam's attention, we are about to finish this exercise with the geotech team, and we have a similar exercise to execute with the excavation civil engineering team on the remaining properties to be agreed upon or to be finalized upon. And the last part of the exercise will deal with the properties relative to systems components, systems equipment. And we hope to be finishing this up by mid-February, sort of, or second half of February. Back and forth discussions with the domain teams. But we are getting there. Time consuming, but we are getting there.
it's tedious, yes. But it's the same experience as we had in infra and rail also. It was a lot more than first anticipated, I think.
But need to get to the point and need to be conclusive and so on. So so that there are no confusion potentially still circulating. Yep. Okay. So with that, I think we can adjourn this one call, and for those interested, we'll be meeting up again tonight at 6 p.m. CET time.
Have a good day.
Thank you. Great evening to you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Have a great evening. Have a great day.
Cheers.
Bye.
And I'm gonna go share my browser window. I just have to find the damn thing. Which one is it? This one. Okay. So it's you guys now, but let me switch to the actual.
Floor is yours.
Documentation. Okay, so Nadia, you are definitely aware of the gradient curve representation. Let's actually start there. Gradient, alignment, geometry, gradient. So this representation. Let's zoom out a bit. And this representation has the following structure. It assigns a shape representation with gradient curve to IFC alignment. So the structure of the gradient curve can then be accessed through this blue link here, which tells us that a gradient curve is built from a, so this is a partial template in BSI terms, and the gradient curve is compiled from curve segments, which would be the horizontal, the segments of the alignment, and, or actually, sorry, from a base curve and segments. So the segments are the vertical part, that's this definition, and the horizontal is this composite curve part that references curve segments. And the composite curve, so the horizontal part, can have arcs, bloss, curves, closoids, cosines, spirals, cubic, Helmert, linear, sine, or Viennese. The vertical part, however, had a requirement to also feature parabolic. So this parabolic segment, if I click on it, is again a partial template that can be referenced by other templates. And this parabolic tells us that it has to be defined by a curve segment that references polynomial curve. And here, and please be gentle with me, this was mainly a note to myself. So it's not really intended to be part of ISO, but somehow it made it to the ISO documentation. So if we look at the ISO documentation, so that's this official, and we go to fundamental concepts and assumptions, and we go to parabolic, you will see that this actual text is in here, unfortunately. Or maybe fortunately, because there's at least something in the documentation.
Yeah, this is all in the documentation there is. Okay, good.
Yes, and what I tried to note to myself is that the y coefficients should be restricted to the size of 3, and the because the quadratic term is on position 3. Actually, this seems like a typo here. This should be y, this should be x, and this should be y, it seems like. In any case, let's continue. And the coefficients x should be restricted to size 2 and only have 0 and 1 as values here. So you see, I already sort of went to the parametric representation instead of a 3-dimensional XYZ function, because of course, if you don't restrict that, then you can even get surfaces, and that's not the intent of polynomial curve. And this is also something that's currently being discussed in the forums. It's a bit old already, and I don't think an agreement has been reached because there's no finalization on it. But that also means that polynomial curve is currently lacking documentation by a lot. And this is the only sort of idea of a usage there is. So if you want to build a polynomial, you would have coefficients y set to 0, 1, and then you would have coefficients x set to on the third. If you just want, you know, one term in your polynomial, the quadratic term, then only the third position. And why is this 3 here? Because express doesn't start counting at 0, it starts counting at 1. So it's basically in every in most of the programming languages this would be 2, but in Express it's 3. So on the third position.
And here it should be a Y or an X. This, yeah.
Here it
this
should
quadratic
be,
term.
Yeah.
It should be a Y or an X. Coefficients X or Y. So now
here I think it's correct. Here it's not correct. I would say. This was switched. This is a typo because I'm restricting to the size of 3, and of course, if I'm restricting to the size of 3, it should be X. So this one should be X. And I think this is how you also interpreted it in the email that Michelle showed before, if I remember correctly, wasn't it? Let me actually check what you said in the end. Coefficients X would be 1, and coefficients Y would be C, B, and A. Oh, I see.
Could you please, yeah, share your screen? We cannot see that email.
I know. I have this wide screen, and I don't want to share the entire screen, but let me share the email. I have to stop sharing this one. But you are right. You interpret it as
so in today's email, right? Not the first one, because in the first one it was just a guess.
Do we have it? Yeah, this one, the last one. This, right? Yeah, you're right. That would make more sense, and it's a bit confusing than in the documentation. But like I said, it was mainly a note to myself. So I think the way you have it here makes sense. Do you see the email?
I can see it.
Yeah. So I would agree with this, and I would correct in our spec, and then submit a correction to Building Smart also. I think this makes sense. And as you see, I was sort of on the fences between the two because the original intent was actually to have a function of X, Y, and Z. But then, of course, I thought about it, and a function of X, Y, and Z means that I can get surfaces, right? And then I would have to restrict stuff and so on. And then I switched to parametric representation of 3D polynomial curves, and it sort of doesn't reflect correctly the intent now. But I will fix that.
So the answer back to Nadia then is that this is fully correct. This is the way to do it.
This would be the way to do it. This is how I also tried to document it, but never got around to it because it was not part of the deployment project, and then the MVD project got cancelled, and somehow nobody was responsible anymore for writing the documentation suddenly.
Okay, good. So Nadia, is that clear to you? Do you have another question related to this?
Not to the parabola issue. So I will try to implement it this way and see. Time will show.
And I will fix the documentation.
And
we do have other questions.
Yeah, you had other questions, but before you jump to another question, I just wanted to ask you, Nadia. So this is this is implementing a parabolic definition for the vertical part of the alignment. Do you have the arc implementation for the vertical part of an alignment already implemented?
I'm just in the middle of the implementation, so I first wrote the code for the business logic, like the horizontal alignment segments and the vertical alignment segments, and now I moved to the shape representation. So
okay, so you choose. Okay, so parabolic may be the most complicated definition of the vertical part, but okay, good.
It might be even that the clothite is the most complicated of the vertical part.
But do you have the clothite as an option for the vertical part?
We do actually, because it was a requirement from China.
Really? Okay.
Yes, yes.
Because
Let
for
me
the
actually
parabolic,
check,
I
but
know are
yes.
typically used for high-speed train railways. Not even for highways, for road highways, but for high-speed train railways, they would be used. Parabolic would be used, but not clothite. At least not in Europe.
In China, clothite is for vertical, yes, indeed. And
Okay.
I honestly don't understand why, because you have transitions typically for the horizontal, not in slopes, because then suddenly it's not a proper transition anymore. But for the vertical, I really don't understand the reasoning. I don't know why they complicate stuff there. But it was a requirement, so we put it in.
Okay, Nadia, you might have another question.
Yes, I wanted to discuss first the IFC curve segment, but I have another question regarding Bloss curve.
Okay.
Which seems to be also complicated stuff. So I looked up for some formulas for Bloss curves on the internet, and when I compare them to the IFC third something, how is it called? I need to.
I think
let me take a look.
But I will.
Fifth or third, because when I Bloss transition segment, I see the IFC third order polynomial spiral.
It is third, yes. Mistaken.
Maybe I could share my screen to show you.
Sure. Go for it.
So can you see my IFC documentation? Bloss transition segment, right?
Yep.
Can you see it? Okay. And now if I go to IFC third order polynomial spiral,
okay,
I see.
You were looking at this. Yeah. This is not completely correct, I think.
Because when I looked for the formulas for Bloss transition, so for the curvature, right? Curvature defined in terms of arc lengths. I miss here the constant term. Seems to be zero. Well, not it seems. It is equal to zero, but I would never achieve a constant term equal to zero if I have here this 1 divided by a whatever it is, 0.
Unless a is infinite, right?
Yeah, the thing is a0, what does it say here? Constant term. Yeah. This kind of makes little sense indeed. This formula did not come from me, however. I don't know how exactly it made it in. And what this a0 is supposed to represent. Up until then, the a0, so the constant term, it's actually fine. Its curvature is length times these terms, so that's actually fine. And the direction angle theta is also fine. It seems fine. But again, this a0 term is problematic here.
And that's straight from the 4.3.2, yes.
Yes. I think she entered these formulas, but I don't know what exactly he meant by this A0 term, because obviously you have to.
Can you ask him directly? Because if there is something like this that is wrong as a pure mathematical definition, this is a worry.
Yes. It might be that there was an agreement that we just take a $sign for A0.
A dollar sign?
The case? Yeah, a $sign is null in Express and in step. So you can just say it's null.
1 divided by null?
By nothing, yes.
That's not 0.
It's an informatics term. Null is non-existent.
Okay.
Doesn't exist. So 1 divided by something that doesn't exist is not a mathematical term. It's just, I think that might be what we were discussing in this sense, or that we just said 0 means 0 in this case. But I'm not. I really have to go back to
At least you know who has
Andreas.
Yeah, please do
Andreas
so. I mean, this is not very comfortable, a situation where you have a mathematical expression that is incorrect.
And here you have that some of these terms are optional. So maybe the constant term is A0 in this case, right?
Yep, exactly.
The cubic is A3 and so on. A2 should be quadratic term and the linear term should be A1.
The documentation, unfortunately, doesn't say anything about that. It's again a note to myself mainly, but it made it into ISO somehow. And
but
I see
it's
it has
optional,
a lot of...
so maybe if it's optional, then if it's like omitted.
If you forget the last term.
Yeah, that's something that I have in mind, but I haven't written it down because for the BLOS segment, again, it's only my note that's in the documentation, and before we finalize this definition, Building Smart already took over the documentation. So I did post some of these issues that the documentation is not finalized for these usages and for stuff, but they didn't get around to fixing it before the submission.
But it looks like Nadia's interpretation is probably the correct one. If that is optional, then you forget the fourth term and that's it.
That's what I currently remember that we agreed on in the end to do this, because at first I wasn't sure what would be the preferred way of parameterizing the curve in the domain. There's 2 options. You either take curvature, which is obviously the superior one that I also preferred, but the domain also wanted angles, so bearing angles in their definitions. So it was a back and forth, but bearing angles are problematic because they only go to 360 and then they start repeating. And when the spiral goes round and round, there's no end. So how do you actually define which start and end angle is supposed to be in curve segment? So my proposal here was always curvature, and also the polynomial spirals are defined on curvature, and then have this optional bearing angle equation.
But again, the good news is that you recall who has inserted these, so please be kind enough for us to check with Chi directly and see what he has to say. But clearly there is probably a need for clarifying the documentation. It's somewhat misleading here. It was a good catch, Nadia.
Make sense.
Anything else?
you know, the documentation is not final anyway. It's like
You're right. You're right.
I put notes in my documentation just to not forget what I wanted to do with this when I was designing the entities, so that I had some fallback usage. And if I look at it, all of the typos have also been transferred because it was fast typing.
Too fast.
Too fast, yes.
Nadia, any other question? Thanks for this.
Yes, I'm trying to like make a relationship between what I have here on the right, and with the formula here for the curvature. So if I ignore the constant term, then I would get that the linear term should also be like equal to 0. So it should be also perhaps optional. If it's optional, then it should be also like omitted in order to.
Yes.
Yeah, and the rest. Here I see this absolute value, which I cannot see on the right.
This was a broken down generic definition, but in the end, for the BLOS, you have a clear definition of what these terms are supposed to be, and those are specified in the concept template for BLOS curve segment, because you're not transferring equations anyway. You're transferring values, and the cubic term should be L divided by cubic root of 2, and the quadratic term should be L divided by cubic root of 3 to calculate the values. But this is generic, right? This is completely generic how you should calculate values from for these terms. You are supposed to take the A3 here and put it in.
Yes.
Let me just recheck.
Okay, I will have to think it over in the meantime.
Me too, actually. This is a bit weird. Why would this be broken down into A3 to the power of 5 and absolute divided by A3? I think I have to think this through, because originally it should just be the complete term, that not broken down into A3 to the power of 5 divided by A3. Should have been just the value multiplied by S to the power of 3. There must be a logic behind this. And these equations should actually be in the usage, I mean in the concept template. I don't know why they are here.
So perhaps the logic is just to get the units right then. If A is in meters, so that you get the S squared over A to the power of 3, that you get the same unit as you get from 1 through A0. I'm looking at the top equation there. So that you're summing up, terms of equation of the same unit. And you have A1 to the power of 3 absolute divided by A1 to keep its sign, but still be the power of 2, right?
Just a second, where do I have this?
maybe we can discuss this also next week. If we all meet together.
Oh yeah, because we, of
The
course,
logic doesn't seem that easy to catch nor remember.
no, the problem is that these terms are actually length measures indeed. Why did we make them length measures?
Sergey, look, take this with she directly tried to find out and get the clarification that obviously needs to be made here, and then we get back to Nadia. Okay. Maybe Nadia has
there
another
was
point.
a reason to make them length measures. I do remember that.
I'm sure there was. Nadia, do you have another question?
Yes, maybe not. Partially, some of my questions regarding IFC curve segment were answered or confirmed on today's implementers forum meeting. I think Sergey, you were there too. So I'm not.
Yes, but only last 20 minutes,
unfortunately.
unfortunately.
Okay. Because
not.
Yeah, because Rick also had the same issues with understanding the. Yeah, he struggled a little bit in the same way as I did, trying to understand, the parameters and semantics of the curve, IFC curve segment. So there was this parent curve and its placement. So I did ask you, Sergey, in my email whether this placement, the placement for the parent curve should be ignored because it seemed to be like redundant.
Exactly. So if you have a placement in something like a circle or something like that, that placement is completely redundant. That was sort of one of the requirements of the domain, that they have these simplified curve segments, because trimmed curve in IFC, probably implemented it also, sort of needs all of these extra parameters, same sense, opposite sense. Then you have to check if the trim is done with a parameter or an explicit Cartesian point. So that was sort of deemed too complicated, and they wanted a representation that only has the start parameter, so the start curvature or bearing angle, and the end parameter. And that's what curve segment does for you. It just takes the positioning of the curve segment, and it the initial direction is the same. The initial tangent is aligned with the initial direction of its positioning. So
with the placement, right? The placement
exactly.
of the
yes,
and the start also. The start of the segment is corresponds to the location, right? Mm-hmm.
So exactly. So this avoids. I actually have a sketch somewhere. This avoids a lot of the. I hate to call it redundancy because it's not redundant in how geometry works, but it avoids a lot of repeating of data, which is typically could be defined in a different way. So the start point of your trim, you first define just the distance along, or the curvature of the distance where you start trimming, and you then trim to this and you got the length, so you trim here and here, and then instead of using this coordinate system of your circle, you just use this coordinate system immediately and you place it somewhere else, and it's like, okay, this is my start trim, and my curve has the tangent in this way, and when I trimmed it, I already positioned it also.
And it applies to all curve types, not just circles and lines, to clothoids and floss curves. And
yes, that's how curve segment is supposed to make implementation easier. But of course, you know, in order to define all of the parameters, certain agreements have to be made beforehand, compared to how trimmed curved works, where all of the agreements don't have to be made. None of the agreements have to be made, and everything is in the entity itself, encoded in the entity. So the direction of parameterization, whether it's the same sense as the original curve or opposite. This, for example, is already done in curve segment, in that when you have the original position, the parameterization again starts here, not this way, so that you can, you know, just go along the alignment seamlessly and continuously. That has to be done explicitly in trimmed curve. Then, you know, you have to position it again, because you have your original position of the curve, you have to position it somewhere, and so on and so forth. So yeah.
so if the parameterization is in the opposite direction, so I would have my like the start would be actually the end of the curve and the segment, and the end would be the actual start. Could this happen? Because you mentioned it, that I could be like moving along the alignment, but for one segment I could be moving in the opposite parameterization direction.
This could happen in a trimmed curve. In a curve segment, it cannot happen, because
okay, so
when you cut in a curve segment, so let's say you cut from 0 to 90, you cut that part, but then you want to use this segment here, and your parameterization goes actually not from 0 to 90, but from 90 to 0. You have to take that into account already in curve segment when you're putting it here, that your parameterization has been reverted. So it's one of the agreements on curve segment that it reverts parameterization if your start point is the actual end point. And it's not explicit, it's just the way curve segment is defined. So you don't have to read this again. You just go along the curve, and then your parameterization is inverted, and you know, you just seamlessly continue in the alignment sense. So it is something to take into account in implementing it, but the actual data set being exchanged does not feature that, because it just takes that into consideration sort of already with curve segment, that parameterization can also be inverted.
Okay, so a lot of flexibility everywhere.
Well, this is actually less flexibility, because curve segment just takes trimmed curve and cuts away all of the flexibility and just makes it, this is the only way it works.
Okay, so I got that wrong then. But no matter.
Yeah, it's the opposite.
That's the opposite. And until Nadia got it, it's fine. It's fine by me.
I hope so. Maybe I will discover when I go on implementing again that I will see. I will try it, and
yeah, please.
Maybe some more questions will come later.
I'm sure. Looks like it. But good. I mean, good that you really go through into the details of, and of course you have to. But yeah, thanks again for pointing these things out and this need for clarification on the documentation, as we said.
Yes, and thank you for inviting me for today's meeting.
You are invited as usual to any of those meetings. We have 2 meetings every Thursday, and we carry on with these meetings till the end of June. So at your disposal.
Thank you very much.
Michael, I wanted, of course, to give you the opportunity. And I have a piece of news for you. We were discussing the other day with partner of ours that is moving forward with the implementation of the way to represent boreholes. And I was thinking that he was looking, for ways to visualize the information that is creating into the IFC files is exporting, is creating, and I was thinking that you would be interested in trying to read these in at a point in time. So he'll be sharing examples. He'll be sharing a PowerPoint that explains the reasons why he has structured the IFC file that way. I think that could be a good exercise for your team to try to read that in.
Yeah, that's really exciting. I would be open if it's appropriate and you feel comfortable putting us in touch, and yeah, we could explore that. My understanding is in our prototype internal version of our flagship software, we just spruced up our ability to read IFC borehole. So it's kind of topical. So yeah, I mean, please do keep me in mind. And if you feel like it's appropriate, please get us connected and be happy to kind of explore that. So
yeah, we'll let you know as soon as the final little fixes that still needed to be made between and that Sergey is advising the developer with. We'll provide that to you.
Okay, great.
Were you saying something, Sergey? Sorry, did I?
I'm typing.
You're typing.
I'm just thinking in parallel why we made it a length measure. We should have probably even made it a real, and then the parameter is sort of the length.
Right.
And
you are still in the previous discussion. Okay.
Yes, it would just be easiest without considering these damn measures, because they are not important in calculating these factors, honestly.
Good. But you were with us when we were discussing the fact that Michael would be interested in getting all your files once you have fixed them with Kazunori, right?
No, I haven't heard that, but yes, of course, definitely.
Yeah. So Michael was expressing his interest. Yeah, that'd be great. So once we have that, we'll arrange that. Maybe just a short debrief between the two of you and ourselves, and that will help you with. But maybe you had other points that you would like to bring to our attention, or?
Yeah. So please. First of all, that's really exciting, and I'll be on the lookout for that. But yeah, I had a question on my end. Hopefully, it's kind of piece of cake for you all. But we're continuing to move forward with. Thanks to you all for setting up all the sprints and things, and so we're continuing to move forward to just working our way through in the nitty-gritty details of being able to consume the various test files and things that came out of the sprints that you set up. And what we were looking at recently was this test model from 2.1, and it's maybe the topic of the day, clothoids, right? So when we tested out consumption of this model, we were getting some odd behaviors, and so to give context, we used the ODA IFC SDK to kind of set the line in the sand of how far out we support consumption of IFC, but we not only tested out being able to read that 2.1 model in our ArcGIS Pro, our desktop software, but we also tested out in the ODA viewer and got some pretty exotic looking behaviors there. So we reached out to so we reached out to ODA, and they indicated that the issue is, not in their understanding. They indicated that the issue is in the model itself, in the clothoid definition. And I apologize because I don't have any more in-depth details than that. But this morning in that implementers forum, there was a discussion about, I think Sergey, I think you kind of caught it maybe from Rick Bryce's discussion about the clothoid and the what's it called? I want to use the proper terms here. Partial template. In the partial template article, that there's this expression for the clothoid constant given as the square root of L, where I think it should be square root of R times L, if I remember correctly from the presentation this morning. So I was just curious if, without me having more details, if possibly that 2.1 model within your all's project team folder, is it maybe something to do with that? Sorry, maybe to state this in other ways, we're having some issues reading this, and I was curious. I
think actually it might be. I mean, I have not followed all these sort of recent alignment discussions, and the alignment in this file is actually from. I used actually a software, I think from John Merchin, that was based on sort of an older version of IFC alignment 4.3. So it might be that there are actually errors in there now. So
I can explain that, actually. This all comes back to the issue of, are we parameterizing with the bearing angle or with the curvature? And at first, like I said, the domain was very firm. We need angles. There's nothing but angles. But then, obviously, curvature is superior to angles for the reason that I explained before. And then we started implementing in a different way. And John Merchin might not have gotten that in that version. So we could look at the file and try to correct it to reflect that.
I think actually we should now when we are, if we can, actually, because sure. I mean, to save time to produce these example files from us. For example, I didn't want to create an alignment sort of programmatically with clothoids and everything and trying to get it right. So I actually just used this and then sort of cloned the alignment into the rest of the file, so to speak. So I think this might be quite old actually in terms of alignment. I'm sorry.
No, I mean, it's more.
What would it require for us to make this current and correct and current?
So I would first and foremost encourage Michael here to open an issue. It also helps us show the stakeholders that we have engagement and that we are also then closing them, let's say, timely. That I don't make a time estimate here. But it's a good catch, definitely. Especially I like the sketch. I would really love if you put it in the issue. Like this probably should not happen or something. Like awesome roller coaster, so to say. And we basically, Lars needs to take a look at the file. I'm going to point the finger here.
You can point the finger. Be my guest. So, but I mean, this has been a little bit a moving target, and I think the file was checked once upon a time in the akka viewer and looked good, and So, but it might not look good anymore. Obviously, it doesn't. So, we need to take a look at it.
Good. Okay. Great. I mean, it's, thanks very much. It's not a big hurdle on our end. I was just wanting to bring it to your attention since it was in the project team folder that, whatever you want to do with that, great. But Stefan, on your suggestion, I'm more than happy to create an issue, and I'll include that little snapshot of the
Yep.
roller coaster. So yeah, okay,
Very
And you
good.
see
Cool.
that reflected also in the documentation, because at first I was writing everything for the bearing angle, with the bearing angle in mind, and then you know, at some point I managed to convince them, but it was also the point of no return because it was already submitted. And like I said, I tried to make the issue public. I wrote a couple of issues on the official GitHub, but I didn't manage to get any engagement from Building Smart. So what do you do?
And talking about the API, the toolkit, make sure to ping as well. Make the ODA people informed, or no, not the ODA people. Was that Geometry Jim you said, Lars?
Yeah.
Yeah, make them inform them as well.
Yeah, I mean, and this is actually not just not to point fingers on John, because he implemented it at this time, and
The way
it
that
was
was,
according to
yes.
the way it was, and it's not at all an official software. He actually made it for us, actually converted it from land XML, because that was the data that we had. So and it's not official, so
No, but just, you know,
yeah,
he
yeah.
can benefit from the information as well, I would say.
Yes, yeah.
John should be aware. He was at the session with Peter Bonsman when we were doing this, so he should be aware by now.
Okay, but good catch. Thank you very much, Michael.
Yeah,
Do you have
no
another one
problem.
for
So-
us, maybe?
yeah. I'm sorry.
Do you have another one for us, maybe?
Nope, that's all from my end. So
Okay, good. Well, excellent. That was, as you said, rightly said, that was a clusteroid-centric session. But you know, back to basics. It's if you don't manage this well, then you have a problem in representing infrastructure projects in general. So yeah, good catches. Thank you very much. With that, I think we probably can adjourn this one call, and we look forward to talking to you in the coming weeks, of course, and we'll keep you posted.
sounds great.
Yep. Have a good
Okay.
day.
Thanks as always.
Nice evening.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Bye.
Have a great evening. Have a great day. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye bye.